The sun rose over the red deserts of Arendar, casting long orange shadows across the jagged rocks. The human colony sat like a small jewel amid the vast, empty land. White domes and silver towers reflected the early light, and the air buzzed with the quiet hum of machines. Humans had settled here decades ago, drawn by the planet's rare resources and the strange, glowing blue rivers that ran through the deserts. Scientists had always been curious about Arendar's alien life, but no one had ever expected the arrival of an intelligent alien visitor. Her name was Lyra, and she was unlike anything the colony had ever seen. She was tall and lithe, with shimmering silver skin and eyes that glowed faintly like liquid sapphires. Her movements were graceful, almost like she was gliding rather than walking. Lyra had come from the Zerathia, distant planet far beyond Arendar's system. Her people were known for their subtle ability to influence the thoughts of others, skill they called the Whisper. On her home planet, she had used it to lead, persuade, and sometimes manipulate. Here, on Arendar, she was confident that no human could resist her. Lyra landed near the colony's main research hub, stepping carefully onto the soft red sand. She had been observing the humans for weeks through hidden sensors, learning their routines, their habits, and their weaknesses. Among them, one man had caught her attention. Captain Elias Kane, a tall, strong human with dark hair and sharp, calculating eyes. He was known for his courage and intelligence. Lyra believed that he would be the perfect subject to test her abilities. As she approached the hub, Elias was already outside, supervising a group of engineers repairing a solar array. His uniform was dusty, and his sleeves were rolled up, revealing strong arms. He glanced up and immediately noticed her. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice calm but commanding. Lyra smiled, tilting her head slightly. She let a soft whisper of her power brush against his mind, expecting him to feel a strange pull, an almost invisible nudge toward obedience. But Elias only raised an eyebrow, as if he sensed the attempt and dismissed it without effort. Intrigued, Lyra stepped closer. "I am Lyra," she said, her voice melodic. "I come in peace." "I mean no harm." Elias studied her carefully. "Peace or not, strangers on this planet are always a risk. We need to know what your intentions are." Lyra's confidence did not falter. She had controlled dozens of beings before, and she assumed this human would be no different. She focused harder, sending another gentle push into his mind, trying to influence him to speak softly, to trust her completely. Elias felt a strange flutter in his thoughts, a sensation like a breeze brushing past his mind. But instead of fear or obedience, a spark of curiosity lit in him. He smiled faintly, pretending to be intrigued, though he was fully aware of her attempt. Humans had a strength that aliens often overlooked: unpredictability. "Interesting," he said aloud, his tone casual. "You seem different from anything we've met before." Lyra's eyes widened slightly. Most beings she encountered yielded immediately, bending to her influence without question. Elias did not. She leaned a little closer, fascinated by his resistance. "Different how?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. Elias shrugged. "You try to influence me, but I feel your power doesn't work the way you think." Lyra's lips curled into a small, amused smile. No human had ever spoken like that to her. Most were easily swayed or confused. Elias was unique. She felt an unfamiliar tug in her chest. Was it curiosity or something deeper? Perhaps it did not matter. She would continue her experiment. For the next few hours, Lyra observed Elias closely. She followed him discreetly through the colony, watching as he interacted with others. He was kind but firm, fair but decisive. His team trusted him, respected him. Lyra realized that controlling such a mind would be more challenging than she had anticipated. But she was determined. She thrived on challenges. As evening approached, the twin moons of Arendar rose, casting a soft silver glow across the desert. Elias walked toward the central dome, where the colony's council often met. Lyra followed at a distance, invisible to the casual observer. She whispered suggestions into his mind, trying to subtly guide his decisions. Planting ideas about minor matters: what path to take, which supplies to check first. Elias felt the nudges. Small and strange, but he remained aware. He decided to play along, pretending to be influenced while quietly noting her technique. His mind, trained for strategy and observation, worked like a shield against her subtle manipulations. The more she tried, the more he studied, and the more fascinated he became with the alien visitor who believed she could control him. Finally, Lyra could not resist stepping closer. She revealed herself openly, standing in the path of the setting sun, her silver skin glowing softly. "Captain Kane," she said, "I must admit, you are not like the others. You resist me." Elias stopped and faced her fully. "And you are not like anyone I have met. Your presence here is unexpected and your powers unusual. But I am still free to choose, Lyra." A flicker of surprise passed over her face. No one had spoken with such confidence and clarity before. She tilted her head, studying him carefully. "You are unlike anyone I know. You do not bend. You do not yield. Why?" Elias smiled faintly. "Humans value freedom. We do not easily give it up. Your abilities, they may be strong, but they are not everything. We have something even more powerful. Choice." Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest, a new feeling that was both thrilling and unsettling. She had come to control him, to see how far her influence could reach. Instead, she was confronted with something unexpected: respect, curiosity, and perhaps admiration. The night deepened, and the colony's lights glimmered against the dark sky. Elias offered her a hand. "If you truly mean peace, then you are welcome to stay, Lyra. But understand this, I will not be controlled. Not by you, and not by anyone else." Lyra took a moment before placing her hand in his. The contact was light, almost ceremonial, but it carried meaning. She nodded slowly. "I understand. Perhaps I came with the wrong expectation. But I am curious now, Captain. I want to learn." Elias' smile widened. "Then we can teach each other. But remember, here on Arender, nothing is as simple as it seems." Lyra's eyes shone. She had expected control, dominance, and obedience. Instead, she found a challenge that intrigued her more than victory ever could. She realized that Elias Kane, human though he was, had a mind unlike any she had ever encountered. That night, as the twin moons reflected off the blue rivers, Lyra stood at the edge of the colony, watching the humans below. She had come believing she would control, but she had discovered something far more valuable, a puzzle she could not solve with power alone, and for the first time, she felt the thrill of uncertainty, the excitement of learning, the fascination of a mind that could not be bent. Elias returned to his quarters, unaware that Lyra's thoughts lingered like a shadow in the corridors. She would study, she would observe, and perhaps one day, she would understand what made humans so unyielding. But for now, she waited, patient and curious, knowing that this was only the beginning of a story far larger than either of them could imagine. And somewhere deep in her mind, Lyra admitted a truth she had never expected. She did not control him. She was wrong. The next morning, the colony stirred with its usual rhythm. Machines hummed, solar panels glinted under the pale red sun, and humans moved briskly across the domed pathways. Lyra observed silently from the shadows, her eyes following Captain Elias Kane as he oversaw the morning repairs. Her curiosity had grown overnight. Elias was not only immune to her subtle influence, he seemed to anticipate her thoughts before she even acted. Lyra decided it was time to test her abilities in a different way. Subtle nudges had failed. Direct influence might reveal the limits of his resistance. She stepped out into the open near the main work zone, deliberately making herself visible. Humans paused, but Elias only glanced at her with measured calm. "You are awake early?" Elias said, his tone casual, yet there was an edge of alertness. "Did you sleep well, Lyra?" Lyra tilted her head, a faint smile touching her lips. "Sleep is not always necessary for my people," she replied. "But I observed you through the night. You move, think, and plan. Your mind is fascinating." Elias raised an eyebrow. "I've heard that before," he said lightly, though he knew this alien was unlike any he had ever met. He studied her carefully, noting every twitch, every flicker of expression. Humans were trained to notice small signs, patterns, and anomalies. It was what had kept his team alive on countless missions. Lyra stepped closer, her voice lowering slightly as she attempted the first real test. This time, she would not rely on whispers or subtle nudges. She tried to plant an idea suggestion that Elias would follow her to the edge of the desert to investigate a fictional signal. Elias paused, feeling the gentle push of her power. He smiled faintly, not from amusement, but from understanding. "Interesting," he said aloud. "You think you can guide me like a puppet? But humans have a different rhythm. We choose our steps, even when someone whispers directions in our minds." Lyra's eyes widened slightly. No one had ever resisted her attempts so deliberately. She felt an unfamiliar spark. Was it excitement, frustration, or both? She could not name it. On her home planet, control was nearly effortless. Here she found herself challenged in a way that intrigued her more than it annoyed her, deciding to escalate. Lyra tried a subtler approach. Instead of trying to control him directly, she sent tiny thoughts into his mind, almost like a puzzle for him to solve. She suggested minor adjustments to his plans, small risks that would lead him to test her in return. Elias noticed these suggestions immediately, but chose to play along. He followed the ideas, observing how they were delivered and when they appeared in his consciousness. Throughout the day, interactions became a silent game between them. Lyra sent gentle mental cues, and Elias acted as though he was influenced but secretly. He was cataloging her patterns, studying the limits of her power. Humans were unpredictable, and Elias had learned long ago that the most effective strategy against an unknown threat was observation. By mid-afternoon, Lyra realized something new. Elias did not simply resist her. He learned from her attempts. She had expected obedience or confusion, yet here was a mind that adapted, analyzed, and responded in ways she had never seen. Her curiosity deepened. This human was not like any other being she had encountered. "Why do you resist me?" she asked, her voice low. Almost a whisper carried through the mental link she tried to maintain. Elias considered the question carefully. "Because I am free to choose," he replied. "Your power is strong, but it cannot replace choice. I can feel your suggestions, Lyra, but I decide whether to follow them or not. That is what makes humans human." Lyra pondered this. She had always believed that the strongest mind was one that could dominate others. But Elias' words suggested a different kind of strength, one not based on control, but on independence. She felt a strange, almost thrilling respect for him. The sun began to set over the desert, painting the sky in shades of red and purple. Lyra followed Elias back to the central dome, observing as he coordinated his team to finish the day's repairs. She noted how humans communicated, how trust and cooperation moved faster than any mental suggestion she could send. She tried another tactic, more subtle than before. Instead of forcing a thought, she projected a feeling, a sense of calm, trust, and curiosity. Elias noticed, but he did not act on it immediately. Instead, he smiled faintly and continued his work, aware of her influence, but choosing his own path. "You are persistent," he said, when she finally appeared beside him. "Most beings would have given up by now." Lyra's eyes glowed faintly. "Persistence is natural to my people. But I sense you are not most beings, Elias Kane. You think differently. You are not easily guided, not easily swayed." Elias nodded. "And that is why humans survive. We face challenges not by following blindly, but by making decisions, sometimes mistakes, sometimes brilliant choices, but always our own. You may find that control is far more difficult than you imagined."
Lyra
felt an unexpected thrill at this. She had come thinking she would bend him to her will, yet here she was, learning from him, fascinated by his resistance. She realized she had underestimated humans. They were not weaker, as many alien species assumed. They were resilient, adaptive, and clever. As the evening deepened, Lyra and Elias walked along the edge of the colony, overlooking the glowing blue river that cut through the desert. The water reflected the twin moons above, shimmering like liquid silver. Lyra's mind drifted to questions she had never asked herself before. Why were humans so determined to remain free? What made their minds capable of resisting powers like hers? Elias noticed her silence. "You're thinking," he said, smiling slightly. "Humans are full of questions, too. Perhaps you're realizing something important." Lyra nodded slowly. "I am realizing that control is not everything. That strength can be measured in other ways, and that perhaps I have something to learn from you." Elias laughed softly. "Then we are both learning. You teach me about your abilities and your people, and I can teach you about humanity. That is how progress is made, through understanding, not domination." Lyra considered his words. She had always measured her power in terms of control and influence. But Elias' resistance made her see a new perspective. Strength was not only in what one could impose on others, but also in one's ability to remain independent, to think freely, and to act with courage. That night, as humans slept under the twin moons of Arendar, Lyra remained outside, gazing at the stars. She felt a new kind of excitement, one that did not come from victory, but from challenge. Elias Kane had shown her a path she had not expected, that true strength might not lie in bending others, but in facing them as equals, learning from them, and growing alongside them. The colony slept peacefully. Unaware of the silent game between the alien girl and the human captain, Lyra's thoughts lingered on Elias' mind, not with the intent to control, but with curiosity, admiration, and something like respect. She realized she had underestimated humans, and that they might be far stronger than she had ever imagined. Her plans for domination had failed, but in their place came a different kind of opportunity. She could not control Elias Kane, but she could learn from him. And that, perhaps, was even more valuable. As the first light of dawn touched the desert, Lyra made a quiet promise to herself. She would continue her observations, continue her interactions, but she would do so differently. She would not try to bend him. Instead, she would meet him as an equal, challenging her own assumptions and testing the limits of what humans and she could achieve together. And somewhere deep in her mind, Lyra admitted a truth she had never expected. The game had changed. She was no longer seeking to control him. She was seeking to understand him. The chapter of arrival was over. The game of learning had begun. The peace of Arendar's colony did not last long. For weeks, Lyra and Elias had continued their silent game, she sending subtle thoughts. He pretending to follow while quietly studying her. But the quiet hum of machines and the soft wind of the desert could not hide the approach of a danger far greater than any test of influence. One morning, alarms echoed through the colony. Red lights flashed along the domes, and a harsh mechanical voice warned unknown spacecraft approaching. Potential threat detected. Humans scrambled to their stations. Elias immediately took command, his voice calm but commanding. "All personnel, prepare for defense. Assess the craft. Report all movements. Stay alert." Lyra felt a shiver of anticipation. She had not expected this. She had come thinking she would test her influence over one human mind, but now the colony faced a real threat. A large shadow passed over the desert, and through the observation windows the humans saw the approaching ships. Dark, angular, and ominous. The vessels belonged to a species known as the Orcs. They were famous for conquering planets using advanced technology and mind control devices. Elias quickly gathered his team. "This is serious," he said. "The Orcs do not negotiate. We will need to defend ourselves with strategy and precision." Lyra followed him silently, fascinated by his calm and organized approach. Humans could not be controlled easily, she realized, but they could adapt and plan in ways that were unexpected. Elias moved among his team, giving orders, checking equipment, and encouraging his people. Lyra noticed the respect he commanded not by force, not by power, but by his ability to think, to act decisively, and to trust others. As the first Vorak ships entered the planet's atmosphere, a feeling of tension gripped the colony. Lyra sensed the danger, but she also felt excitement. This was real. This was not a test. And yet, for the first time, she realized that her abilities were limited. She could influence small thoughts, subtle feelings, but she could not bend Elias' mind to her will. And more importantly, she could not stop an invasion alone. Elias turned to Lyra. "We need every advantage we can get," he said. "Can you help us?" Lyra hesitated. She had come thinking she could control humans, but now the situation was different. She was faced with a choice: try to assert her power or work with these beings who had proven themselves strong, intelligent, and unpredictable. She chose the latter. "Yes," she said. "I will help. But I will not try to control anyone. I will use my abilities to assist, not dominate." Elias nodded, his respect for her growing. "Then follow my lead. Trust in what humans can do, and I will trust in what you can do." Together, they coordinated the colony's defenses. Lyra used her subtle abilities to mislead sensors, confuse minor Vorax patrols, and relay warnings to the humans. Her powers were no longer tools of control. They became tools of cooperation. For the first time, she understood what it meant to work alongside humans rather than against them. The Vorax began their initial assault on the colony's outer structures. Human defenses were strong, but they were outnumbered. Lasers flashed across the sky, and explosions rocked the red sands. Amid the chaos, Elias moved quickly, directing teams to repair breaches, position defenses, and evacuate civilians to safe zones. Lyra followed him, her mind sharp, observing, assisting, and learning. In one moment of crisis, a Vorax strike destroyed a section of the solar array. Energy began to fail in nearby domes. Elias assessed the damage and gave rapid orders. "Engineering team, reroute power. Security, cover the engineers. Lyra, can you help shield the pathway?" Lyra concentrated, using her abilities to create a mental fog that slowed the Vorax drones. They hesitated, giving the humans just enough time to repair the conduits. She realized that her power alone could not defeat the Vorax that needed to be combined with human strategy, courage, and teamwork. Elias noticed her efforts. "Good work, Lyra. Keep it up," he said, his voice steady. It was the first time she felt recognized as an equal contributor rather than a subject to be controlled as the day wore on. The colony repelled multiple attacks, but it was clear the Vorax had not yet revealed their full strength. They had a leader, a commander whose presence radiated control and menace. Lyra sensed the difference immediately. Unlike her subtle influence, the Vorax commander's power was harsh and invasive. Attempting to dominate every mind in its reach, humans were exposed and many faltered under the pressure. Lyra realized how much she had underestimated the strength required to resist, but Elias remained calm. He moved among his people, encouraging them, giving them small tasks that strengthened morale and survival. His courage inspired the humans around him, and Lyra realized something profound. Human strength was not in a single individual, but in unity, choice, and determination. During a quiet moment, Lyra spoke to Elias. "Your people. They are resilient. Even when faced with powers stronger than mine, they do not yield. I see why humans survive. It is not just the mind. It is the spirit." Elias looked at her thoughtfully. "Humans are not perfect. We make mistakes, sometimes terrible ones, but we learn, we adapt. That is what makes us strong. Powers like yours are impressive, Lyra, but they are not everything. Humans thrive on freedom, courage, and trust." Lyra felt a strange warmth. She had expected to dominate, to see obedience, to assert control. Instead, she found herself learning lessons she had never anticipated: respect, cooperation, and admiration. She realized that Elias' mind was not the only human mind that resisted her. The entire colony working together was stronger than any single alien power. As night fell, the Vorax commander sent a strike force directly at the colony's central hub. Explosions lit the desert sky, and alarms blared louder than ever. Humans scattered to their positions, and Elias moved at lightning speed, giving orders, repairing defenses, and protecting civilians. Lyra followed, assisting wherever she could. Her abilities now a part of the human effort rather than a tool for her own ambition. In one critical moment, Vorax drone breached the central dome. Lyra quickly projected a mental suggestion not to control, but to distract the drone. It faltered, giving Elias just enough time to disable it with a plasma rifle. He glanced at her eyes sharp. Perfect timing. Keep observing and assisting. This is how we win. Lyra nodded. She realized she had learned a new kind of strength today. Control was not always victory. Observation, cooperation. And courage could turn even the direst situations into triumph. The night ended with the colony battered, but still standing. Humans and Lyra had survived the first wave, but the threat was far from over. Lyra understood now that her assumptions about dominance and control were wrong. She could not and should not attempt to dominate Elias Kane. Humans were unpredictable, clever, and brave. And when united, they could face even the most terrifying adversaries. Elias finally allowed himself a moment of rest. He looked at Lyra, who stood beside him, her silver skin reflecting the pale glow of the moons. "You've learned much today," he said. "Not about power, but about humans. And perhaps about yourself." Lyra nodded. "Yes. I came here thinking I could control. I was wrong. I see now that influence is only meaningful when it is earned, and respect is stronger than any control. I wish to continue learning." Lyra smiled faintly. "Then you will. But be prepared. The Voracks are not finished, and neither is the challenge." Lyra felt a thrill at his words. For the first time, she realized that life was not about bending others to her will, but about rising to challenges, learning, and growing. She had expected a simple game of control. Instead, she had discovered a far greater test: survival, cooperation, and the strength of the human spirit. As the twin moons of Arendar reflected off the glowing rivers, Lyra knew this was only the beginning. The Voracks' threat would return, stronger and more cunning. But now, she was not alone. She had allies who could think, fight, and resist in ways she could never have imagined. And for the first time, she looked forward to the challenge. Not with the certainty of control, but with the thrill of learning and the excitement of genuine collaboration. The humans had shown her their true strength, and Lyra realized that being wrong about control was perhaps the most valuable lesson she had ever received. Tomorrow, the battle would continue. But tonight, humans and Lyra stood together, ready to face whatever came next, not as master and subject, but as allies united by courage, intelligence, and determination. And in that moment, Lyra understood something she had never anticipated. The mind that cannot be controlled is often the strongest mind of all. The next morning, the colony awoke to a tense, restless energy. Scouts reported that the Voracks forces were regrouping in the northern desert. Their numbers had grown, and their attack patterns were more complex and coordinated. The humans, led by Captain Elias Kane, prepared for a full-scale confrontation. Lyra stood beside him at the command center, watching the activity on the holomap. She had learned much since arriving on Arendar, but the scale of the Voracks' threat now pushed her understanding to its limits. Unlike her subtle attempts to influence Elias' mind, the Voracks were aggressive, organized, and ruthless. The humans would need more than courage. They would need ingenuity, resilience, and unity. "Lyra," Elias said, pointing to the map. "The Voracks are concentrating their forces here near the river crossing. If they take it, they can split our defenses and cut off supplies. We cannot allow that." Lyra studied the area carefully. She could sense the mental patterns of the Vorax scouts through the small extensions of her power. It was not control, but perception, or tool she could use to assist. "I can create confusion among their scouts," she said. "They may delay their attack if I interfere subtly." Elias nodded. "Good, but it must be coordinated. Our teams need every second." "Can you handle that?" Lyra smiled faintly. "I will try." The humans moved quickly, setting up defensive perimeters and preparing countermeasures. The engineers rerouted power to weapon systems. Medics prepared field stations, and scouts relayed information about Vorax movements. Lyra assisted wherever she could, using her abilities to slow the Vorax drones and mislead small patrols. Her power alone could not stop the enemy, but combined with human strategy, became a significant advantage. As the sun rose higher, the Vorax launched their assault. Ships descended over the desert, firing energy pulses and dropping landing pods that released heavily armored troops. Humans fired back with plasma cannons, turrets, and small squads of fighters. Explosions rocked the desert, sending plumes of red dust into the sky. Elias moved through the battlefield like a conductor, orchestrating humans and Lyra in perfect coordination. He shouted orders, repositioned teams, and calculated risks with a clarity born of experience. Lyra followed, using her powers not to dominate, but to shield teams, slow Vorax reinforcements, and give humans split-second advantages in one critical moment. A Vorax strike team approached the central dome, intending to breach the command center. Elias ran ahead, positioning his squad to intercept. Lyra focused her attention on the attackers, projecting a mental fog that delayed their coordination. The Vorax faltered, giving humans enough time to neutralize the threat before they could breach the dome. Elias glanced at her. "Perfect timing, Lyra. Keep your focus. We are stronger when we act together." Lyra realized that her perception and subtle mental nudges were most effective when combined with human ingenuity. Alone, her power was limited. Together with humans, it could change the course of battle. For the first time, she felt a true partnership, not as someone controlling, but as someone working alongside equals. The battle raged for hours. Humans adapted to every Vorax tactic, turning traps against the invaders, using the desert terrain to their advantage, and relying on quick thinking over brute strength. Lyra saw the brilliance in their strategies. Humans were unpredictable in ways her people rarely encountered, and that unpredictability became a weapon in itself. During a pause in the fighting, Elias and Lyra took a moment to assess the situation. The central hub had sustained damage, and supplies were running low, but the Vorax forces had been slowed significantly. "Your abilities are impressive," Elias said, panting slightly. "But it is your willingness to work with humans that makes the difference. Alone, we might fail. Together, we survive." Lyra nodded, feeling an unfamiliar sense of humility and respect. She had expected control, submission, and obedience, yet here she was, learning from Elias and the humans, contributing in ways she had never imagined. "I understand now," she said. "Strength is not always in dominance. It is in cooperation, trust, and courage." Leah smiled faintly. "Exactly. Humans are not perfect. We make mistakes, and we sometimes falter. But we adapt, we endure. That is what makes us strong." As evening approached, the Vorax commander revealed itself. Unlike the foot soldiers and drones, this leader radiated power. Its presence was oppressive, its mental influence invasive. Lyra sensed it immediately, an ability far stronger than hers, seeking to dominate every mind in its reach. The humans could resist, but only barely. Elias quickly gathered his team. "This is the final wave. We cannot let the commander breach our defenses. Lyra, can you interfere with its perception?" Lyra nodded. "I will try, but I will not control anyone. I will only create openings." The final assault began. The Vorax commander moved across the battlefield, its presence pushing some humans to panic, its energy pulses disrupting electronics. Lyra focused all her attention on creating distractions, subtle misdirections, and openings for human squads to strike. Her efforts, combined with Elias's leadership and the humans' ingenuity, created a dynamic defense that even the Vorax could not predict. In one intense moment, the commander targeted the main bridge of the colony, intending to cut off escape and reinforcements. Elias sprinted ahead, placing himself strategically. Lyra projected her mental influence, not to dominate, but to confuse the commander's perception of the terrain. It faltered, buying Elias enough time to disable its shields with a calculated shot from a plasma launcher. Humans surged forward, exploiting the opening, and together they forced the Vorax commander to retreat. Exhausted but victorious, they watched as the enemy ships pulled back into the northern desert. The battle had been hard fought, but the colony had survived. Lyra stood beside Elias, her silver skin faintly glowing under the twin moons. "I did not expect this," she said quietly. "I came thinking I could control you. I was wrong. But I have learned something far more valuable." Elias nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "You've learned that humans are strong not because we can dominate, because we choose, because we adapt, and because we trust each other. You've also learned that cooperation can be more powerful than control." Lyra smiled, a rare and genuine expression. For the first time, she felt the thrill of partnership rather than conquest. She had come to Arendar expecting to dominate a human mind. Instead, she had discovered resilience, intelligence, and courage that surpassed anything she had imagined. The colony began repairs immediately, using lessons learned from the battle. Humans shared strategies, improved defenses, and worked with Lyra to anticipate future attacks. She had gone from observer to active participant. She felt a new kind of pride, not from power, but from contribution. Elias looked at her thoughtfully. "Tomorrow will bring new challenges. The Vorax may return, stronger than before, but tonight we rest. And tonight you have proven yourself not as a controller, but as an ally." Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting the glow of the moons on the desert sands. "I will continue to learn, Captain. I will continue to fight alongside humans, and I will remember this lesson. Respect and trust are stronger than control." As humans settled for the night in their domes, Lyra remained outside, staring at the stars. She had expected mastery over Elias' mind, yet she found herself mastering something far more profound: understanding, its collaboration, and humility. Elias joined her silently. "You've come a long way, Lyra," he said. "And you're not done yet. Tomorrow, we face more challenges. But with your help, we can meet them together." Lyra turned to him, a faint smile on her lips. "Together," she said. For the first time, the word felt real, meaningful, and exciting. It was no longer about control. It was about partnership, strategy, facing the impossible as equals. As the twin moons reflected off the blue rivers, Lyra realized something she had never imagined. Humans could resist, adapt, and survive against powers far greater than hers. Elias Kane had taught her that true strength was not in bending others, but in rising to challenges alongside them. And in that moment, Lyra understood the ultimate truth. She had been wrong to believe she could control him. Instead, she had found something far more powerful: the courage, ingenuity, and spirit of humanity. Tomorrow, the battle would continue. But tonight, humans and Lyra stood together, stronger for the lessons learned and ready for whatever came next. The turning point had passed, and a new chapter of understanding, respect, and alliance had begun. The morning sun rose over Arendar, casting long shadows across the red desert. The humans were tense but ready. After days of skirmishes and testing their defenses, the Vorax had returned larger, faster, and more organized than ever. Their commander, a towering figure of dark energy and ruthless intelligence, had prepared a final strike. The colony's survival depended on humans and Lyra working together in perfect unity. Captain Elias Kane stood at the center of the command hub. He gave orders with clarity and authority. "All teams, hold your positions. Focus on coordination, not panic. Engineering, double shields. Scouts monitor Vorax movement. Lyra, your interference will be key. Distract their command units while we counterattack." Lyra nodded, her silver skin reflecting the glow of the morning sun. "Understood," she said. She had learned much since her arrival. Control had been her goal, but collaboration had become her strength. She would use her abilities not to dominate, but to protect, guide, and support. The first Vorax ships appeared on the horizon, black and angular against the red sky. Their energy pulses struck the outer defenses, sending sparks and debris flying. Humans responded with plasma turrets and mobile squads, their precision honed by days of preparation. Lyra focused on the Vorax commander. She could sense its invasive thoughts reaching toward human minds, attempting to dominate and disrupt. She projected a careful mental fog, not to control anyone, but to confuse the commander's perception, creating openings for human fighters. The effect was subtle, but enough to give the humans a critical advantage. Elias moved across the battlefield, coordinating squads with precision. Flank their right side. Protect the command hub. Lyra, shift your focus to the drones near the river crossing. His voice carried authority. But there was trust in his tone, trust that Lyra had never experienced from anyone before. As the battle intensified, humans displayed creativity and courage that amazed even Lyra. Small squads used the desert terrain to ambush Vorax drones. Engineers rigged energy traps that disabled landing pods. And medics moved fearlessly among the wounded. Elias' leadership inspired confidence, and every human knew their role. Acting with skill and determination, Lyra assisted continuously, her power subtle but effective. She disrupted communication among Vorax scouts, delayed reinforcements, and projected moments of hesitation into enemy troops. She realized that her abilities alone were not enough to win. But combined with human strategy, courage, and quick thinking, they became a powerful force multiplier. The Vorax commander advanced toward the colony's central dome, its presence overwhelming. Humans faltered under its oppressive influence, but Elias stood firm. "Do not give in," he shouted. "Focus on your training, your skills, and your teamwork." Lyra joined him, her mental energy pushing back the commander's invasive influence. She did not try to control anyone, only to create a distraction that allowed humans to act. The commander faltered, sensing a challenge it had not expected. Lyra had grown strong not through domination, but through cooperation and understanding. Elias spotted a weak point in the Vorax formation. "Now," he yelled, "all teams converge on the flank. Focus fire on the command ship." Humans surged forward, attacking with precision and coordination. Lyra amplified the confusion among the enemy, ensuring the human attack would be effective. Explosions rocked the battlefield as humans pushed the Vorax back. Squads moved with speed and intelligence, cutting off reinforcements and disabling enemy systems. The Vorax commander struggled to maintain control over its forces, surprised by the humans' adaptability and Lyra's interference. In one decisive moment, Elias and Lyra faced the commander directly. Elias fired a plasma launcher that struck its armor, while Lyra projected a powerful mental distortion, disorienting it. The combination was enough. The Vorax commander faltered, retreating as its troops were overwhelmed by the humans. The battlefield fell silent as the last. Vorax ships withdrew into the desert. Humans cheered, exhausted but triumphant. They had survived, not through raw power alone, but through courage, intelligence, and unity. Lyra stood beside Elias, her silver skin glowing faintly in the light of victory. Elias turned to her. "We did it. Not by domination, not by force alone. We survived because we worked together." Lyra nodded. "I have learned something greater than I imagined. I came here thinking I could control you, control humans. I was wrong. True strength lies not in control, but in trust, respect, and courage." Elias smiled faintly. "That is the lesson humans live by every day. You've seen it firsthand now." The humans began repairs immediately, restoring damaged structures and securing the colony. Lyra assisted, not as an observer, but as a partner. Her abilities were now a part of the human effort, enhancing their strategies and strengthening their defenses. For the first time, she felt that she belonged not as a superior being seeking control, but as an equal, contributing to something greater. That evening, Elias and Lyra walked along the edge of the colony, overlooking the glowing blue river. The desert was calm, the twin moons reflecting off the water in gentle silver light. Humans moved quietly through the camp, exhausted but relieved, tending to the wounded and preparing for the future. "You've changed, Lyra," Elias said softly. "Not because of power, but because of understanding. You see what humans truly are, resilient, clever, and brave." Lyra looked at him, a faint smile on her lips. "I have learned more than I expected. I came seeking control, but I found something far more valuable: partnership, respect, and trust. You have shown me that strength is measured not by power but by courage and cooperation. Elias nodded. And you've taught us something too. Your abilities, your insight, they helped us survive. Humans thrive on freedom, but we also thrive when we embrace allies and adapt to challenges. Today, you became part of that. Lyra felt a warmth in her chest she had never felt before, mix of pride, respect, and genuine connection. She had arrived expecting dominance and obedience, but she had discovered friendship, partnership, and the strength of human ingenuity. The night deepened, and the colony settled into quiet vigilance. The Vorac's threat had been repelled, but Lyra knew it could return. The humans, guided by Elias and strengthened by their unity, would be ready. And she would be there beside them, not as a controller, but as an ally, mentor, and partner in defense. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, Elias said. But we face them together, Lyra nodded. Together, she said. The word felt heavy with meaning, carrying the promise of future battles, growth, and mutual respect as the twin moons reflected off the river. Lyra realized something she had never understood before. She had been wrong to believe she could control Elias Kane. She had assumed that power was the ultimate measure of strength. But now she knew that courage, intelligence, and free will were far more powerful than any ability to dominate. The humans had proven that no alien ability could replace determination, or creativity, and teamwork. Elias had proven that even a single human mind, when guided by choice and reason, could withstand influence far beyond ordinary limits. And Lyra had learned that true influence comes not from control, but from respect, collaboration, and trust. The colony was safe, the Vorac's were defeated for now, and humans and Lyra had formed a bond that would endure beyond the battle. Lyra felt a sense of purpose she had never known. She was no longer an observer, no longer a would-be controller. She was part of something greater, a team, a community, a partnership built on mutual respect and shared goals. Elias turned to her one last time that night. We survived because we were united. Humans endure because we value freedom, courage, and trust. You've learned that, Lyra, and I hope you will continue to stand with us in the days to come. Lyra smiled. I will. I have seen the true strength of humans. I will continue to learn, to fight, and to stand beside you. Not as someone who controls, but as someone who respects and values choice and courage. The twin moons of Arendar reflected in the glowing blue rivers, casting a serene light across the desert. The battle was over, but the story was far from finished. Humans had survived not because of alien power or domination, but because of their spirit. Lyra had learned the most important lesson of all, that true strength lies in freedom, courage, and partnership. And for the first time, she understood that being wrong about control had been the greatest gift she could have received. Together, humans and Lyra looked to the future, ready to face whatever new challenges the universe might bring. Their bond was forged not through domination, but through mutual respect, trust, and the unyielding spirit of humanity. The story of Arendar had reached a turning point, and the true victory was not merely survival, it was understanding, growth, and the enduring strength of choice. In the quiet of the night, with the colony safe and the Vorac's defeated, Lyra whispered to herself, I cannot control him. I never could, but I can stand beside him, and that is more powerful than anything I imagined. Elias looked out at the desert, knowing that humanity had not only survived, but had also inspired even the most powerful of visitors to see the value of courage, respect, and free will. And so, the alien girl who thought she could control him learned the ultimate truth: freedom, trust, and collaboration are stronger than any power, and even the most unyielding mind can teach lessons no force can impose.